The other day, I had a friend that I hadn't seen in a decade, and this was the first time for him to be in Japan. And he asked me, "Why do you love living in Japan?" At the time, when he asked me the question, I guess I gave him a pretty generic answer. But later, when going back home on the train, I kind of reflected a little bit more deeply on that question. Today, I guess I wanted to go for a walk and take my notepad, polish a little bit my notes through the laptop, and I wanted to share why I personally love my life in Japan, because it's so obvious how much this place has changed me. It's obvious how much it changes every person that lives here. And I think that if you ask foreigners why they love living in Japan, each will have their own, unique answers. There will be things that will come back, but overall, I think every person has kind of their unique reasons. And so I want to make this video to share why I personally love my life here in Japan. So the first reason why I love Japan is the culture. Japan has a very, I guess, unique way of creating peace. Even in this super busy place, which is Tokyo, nearly 40 million people are living here. And yet I almost never feel overwhelmed in Japan or in Tokyo. I think people have their way here to respect other people's space, and there is such a deep sense of empathy and consideration of other people's feelings that allows this somehow to work, right? There's so much people here, and yet somehow it doesn't feel overwhelming. If you're in a train, it's super silent. If you go to a shrine, even if there's like a bunch of people, you barely hear anyone. And so I love this because it really offers me this quiet and peaceful place all the time to just feel relaxed. There's one thing in particular that I learned recently that I want to share, which is another type of empathy that I was not aware of. Until recently, I thought empathy meant to understand what someone else is going through, to say, hey, I know how you feel. But in Japan, I learned through something that happened to me and my wife recently. I won't get into details, but it was a very painful event. I learned in Japan that empathy, it's also the honesty to admit to people that you don't know what they're going through, that the pain that they have is their pain, they have full ownership on it. And being able to admit, like, I don't know what you're going through and I never will, but I'm there for you if you need me, but there's no pressure whatsoever on your behalf to share your pain. I think it's something that I really learned in Japan. To give you a bit more context, when my wife and I went through this painful event, my in-laws and my Japanese friends, some of them knew, like my in-laws knew obviously, but never have they said something like, oh, we know what you're going through, please, feel free to contact us anytime, feel free to call us. Never. We knew they were there, but they never had to insist on the fact that they were sharing our pain or that they were there for us. And my Western family was the opposite, where they were insisting all the time, saying, oh my God, we're so sad for you guys. We know what you're going through. And also kind of encouraging us to talk about it. And don't get me wrong, this is cultural, but I do really love how Japan has this two types of empathy. The second reason I wrote down is the environment. What I love about Japan and Tokyo in particular, I guess, is how quickly you can go from a massive city to, being in nature, being in mountains, being in the forest. Like, it only takes like literally an hour of train for me to be completely in a different environment, and I love this. I also love, the architecture, the shrines, the temples. I love the fact that we have distinct seasons here in Japan, where there's a lot of sunshine. Like where I'm coming from, Belgium, we don't really have much sunshine. We have a lot of rain, a lot of cloudy days, and it does tend to play a big role on your mental health. It's somehow quite depressing at times to not have any sunshine. And this is something I really love about Japan. I'm sure you've heard it, but it's extremely clean as well. And this is another thing that I love about this place. Another thing that I forgot to add when it comes to the culture, and it does add to the cleanliness of the place, is I love this craftsmanship about Japan. You know, how much they care about details, how much they are just able to sweat the small things. You know, I learned a lot from Japan, and that's one of the things, you know, being able to really care about small things, about small details. This Kaizen philosophy of always trying to push the boundaries, trying to always improve a little bit towards something bigger is something I absolutely love. And yeah, I'm very grateful to Japan to have taught me that mentality and philosophy of life. Another thing about the environment is how safe this place is. You know, the kids here, they're going at a very young age. They go by themselves at school. They do some groceries after school. Like, they're 4, maybe 5, 6 years old, and they're already kind of learning to be independent. And where I'm coming from, you know, it's not like super unsafe compared to other places in the world, but we definitely are, you know, like, as a woman, going back home at night is scary. You don't let your children run around or take the train by themselves at that young age. So I love Japan for offering that to the people that I love the most, which are, you know, obviously my wife, my kid. They feel safe. My wife can go home at night and doesn't have to fear her safety. Like, Japanese people take the safety for granted, but as a foreigner here in Japan, this is one of the reasons I absolutely love this place. It feels safe, and it allows you to really think clearly without constantly fearing something might happen to you. The third thing that I wrote down is the food. Obviously the Japanese food is extremely tasty, but what I meant more is the food culture here. People are taught from a very young age here. You know, I see it with the education that my kid is getting at the daycare. I see the type of content that, you know, they are watching. They're really taught to fall in love with the vegetables, with the good food, you know, the food that is good for you. There's even this philosophy called hara hachibu, which is to eat until you're 80% full. And again, I think that's such a great thing. Like, I used to eat until I was very full, and it just made me feel tired, bloated. And in Japan, with this food culture, I feel like I have more energy. I feel better in my body. And yeah, it's something I really love about this place. Whenever I go back home, actually, to Belgium, I tend to feel tired. I tend to feel like I'm spending my day digesting. And, you know, adding on top of that, the lack of sunshine, the energy level that I have in Belgium compared to in Japan is drastically different. So that's a third thing that I wrote down, is the food and the food culture. And finally, probably the biggest reasons why I love life in Japan. I love who I become here. And this might sound weird to talk about self-love and saying how much I love who I'm becoming and who I am today, but it's true, and it's a feeling that I was chasing. When I left my country, I didn't like who I was. I didn't feel proud of who I was. I felt ashamed of the person that, you know, those that count for me were loving was not a good human. And Japan has really offered me the chance to grow into someone that I genuinely respect, that I like what I'm becoming. I stand for certain things, and I'm, you know, not ashamed or not afraid to speak up. Japan has allowed me to become a version of myself that I like. I'm proud of what I'm becoming, and I think this is very important. I'm more focused, I'm more patient. This country has taught me the idea of breaking through the paper walls, that what might look like a solid wall, unless you really push it, you will never know the real depth of how thick that wall is. Japan is such a different place for me that it really challenged me to constantly think deeply of like, wait, but is there a better way? Is there another way? Is there my way to do things? And the other thing is, as a foreigner, I've learned that not belonging can become the ultimate form of freedom. That being an outsider is a superpower. And that's probably one of the core reasons why I love living in Japan. I love being an outsider. I love being somehow out of the norm and unique. It feels like a hack. It feels like the world and the environment is constantly telling me, just be yourself. Don't try to blend in. And it might sound hard or painful, but if you are capable of flipping this around, this environment will help you thrive. Anyway, I'll wrap it up. I think I got my point across. I love this place. I'm extremely grateful to Japan. If this does resonate with you, maybe it helps you to, pull the trigger and make your decision to come live here. If it doesn't, don't let this shape your opinion on the place. I just wanted to share this very personal and honest, reasons of why I personally love life in Japan. As always, if you sticked until the end of the video, I appreciate you. If there's anything else you feel like I should add or should share, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'll keep walking a bit and keep writing. Cheers.